I had really intended for the last video on refining our iron bloom from our smelting project to be the last one for a while on this subject, and getting to this big hunk of bloom to be a whole new series of videos to take this from bloom to usable project. But based on some of the comments, I thought I would try to recap, summarize, and clarify a few things that maybe were not presented very clearly in the video, or simply answer questions that are coming up over and over again so that everybody can have the answers to those questions, just in case I haven't answered them all personally. And I've tried to, but I'm sure I've missed a few of them. First, starting at the foundry, the bloomery process, a lot of people have commented about taking the bloom initially, putting it on a wooden stump, and consolidating it with big wooden sledgehammers. And that's certainly the ideal. That's the way most people do it. We did put it on a wooden stump, but we didn't have big wooden hammers available. And for a limited experiment here in my shop, it wasn't something I was going to go out and make or buy big hammers. If I do it again, I probably will. I'll probably turn some 10-pound wooden hammerheads and put them on a handle, and we'll have those. But that just wasn't available. But this nice hunk of bloom that is heavy and well consolidated was done on the wooden stump. The little bits of bloom that we had in here were picked out of the rubble after everything had cooled, so they didn't get the chance to be consolidated that way. And that's the reason they hadn't had that step done to them when we got to the forge. Not that it wasn't something that we knew we needed to do or wanted to do or anything like that. It just didn't happen because they were down in the rubble of the brick and you couldn't find them until it cooled enough to fish through there. And we spent quite a bit of time fishing through, trying to get every useful little bit of iron out of there. So that's brings us back into the shop. A lot of people have commented about using a press to consolidate it. I think at some point that's probably a very valid thing to do. This was so fragile and so easy to break into pieces. If I hit it too hard with a hammer, I'm not sure that the press wouldn't have just blown it to pieces and made it even worse. It may not have, I don't know. If we do this again, we will experiment with some other things. Originally I thought this might be the one time in my lifetime I do this, but it was so much fun and it was so intriguing. I think I'm probably going to do it again. Hopefully I can get together with Jake to do it again, and we will probably do some things a little different. We'll get the wooden mallets. Maybe we'll try consolidating under a press. There'll be some changes. Another issue we had, again back at the bloom, was the blower. It definitely needs to be toned down. Some people suggested a rheostat. Some people said a rheostat will burn out the mower. It suggested a damper, maybe a smaller blower. Lots of options there, and I'm sure Jake will look into that for his next one. And if I do this again, I'll probably just look at a much smaller blower that doesn't have too many issues. But we are aware of the issues, and those issues were identified as part of the project, but perhaps not presented very well as part of the video series. One other really big question was the difference between wrought iron and steel, because the process of making wrought iron and steel isn't all that different. It's a matter of bringing it up to temperature, adding carbon to make steel, and typically the bloomery process doesn't add much carbon to the iron, and therefore you get a low carbon wrought iron. But at some point in the history of ironmongery, somebody discovered steel. Quite likely that came out of one of these bloomery furnaces, and they had something that was much higher carbon and much harder, and they had to figure out, now, what was different about this piece than everything else we've made? And to be honest, that's what we did. And I think that goes back to that blower probably made things too hot, and therefore we actually managed to bind more carbon into this. I spark tested one of these bars, and we made high carbon steel. This bloom really sparks good. Now when I work this down and refine it, it may decarburize some, because typically tool steels decarburize through repeated heatings, and unless they are at a very high heat and exposed to carbon, they don't really absorb much more. So it's hard to say exactly when you're creating steel and when you're decarburizing, but based on the sparks from this and the fact that it seemed to weld at a fairly low temperature, there's little doubt in my mind we have high carbon steel. I have not heated it and quenched it to see how hard it gets. I'm going to refine it more before I do any test hardening. But the spark pattern is very aggressive, very bright, complex sparks that are much like sparking a file. Now let's go take a trip to the grinder and take a look at exactly what I'm talking about. Now I don't think you're going to be able to hear me over the grinder, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, then we're going to do it, and then I will tell you what I did. So you'll get two chances to hear what I'm doing. First thing I'm going to spark is a piece of old wrought iron. You can see how this is falling apart. It's very clearly wrought iron, and we'll see what this was. Our goal was to make wrought iron, so we'll see what it sparks like. Then I'm going to spark a file, something we know is very high carbon steel, something along the lines of 1095 or W1, something of that sort. Then I will spark a piece of our wrought iron that we made, and we'll see what the bloom looks like. So wrought iron and file, those are two control things, and then we'll compare our wrought iron, or wrought steel that I think I'm going to start calling it, and our bloom, and we'll see what we actually ended up with. So once again, that started off with the wrought iron, which produced very little spark. And I guess I'll do it again, but you won't be able to hear well over the grinder, I don't think. The file, which produces a very bright shower of sparks. Our little piece that was refined from the little bloomy bits that should have been wrought iron, but I think is more of a steel. That isn't as bright as the file, but it's awfully darn close. And then finally our chunk of bloom that has who knows what hanging all over it. So I hope that was fairly clear on the camera, very clear in person, that the little piece of what should have been wrought iron and our bloom both spark much more consistent with the file. They aren't as bright, so they aren't quite that high a carbon content. A file is probably close to 1% or 100 points of carbon. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is 70 or 80 points of carbon. And some of that may be lost during further refinement. Like I say, frequently things decarburize some. But that's really quite impressive, and that is completely by accident. That is not what we were going for. And typically in the bloomery process, that's not what you achieve. But I suspect that goes back to that blower blowing more air and making for a hotter fire than we anticipated. And at that higher heat, the iron can absorb more carbon. I'm theorizing a little bit. I have done very little research on the subject, and that's just kind of going from memory on what I have read. I'm sure some of you will know better than I do on the subject and may have actually done some of this. The final thing that was suggested quite often in the comments on that video was, why not take all the little scrappy bits and put them in a crucible and then remelt them in a crucible? And that's, again, a very valid technique. That was done. Old Damascus steels, the original Damascus or Woots, was a crucible steel process. If you've watched that Nova special on making the Viking sword, or the Ulfbert sword. That was also a crucible steel process, although they conclude that it wasn't done by the Vikings, but was traded to the Vikings either as steel or as finished swords, more likely, because it was being done somewhere else in that part of the world at that time. It was not a common technology. Certainly we understand that technology today, and if we were trying to produce the most consistent, predictable product, that is the process to use. That's why you can't buy wrought iron anymore, or you can't buy new wrought iron, because crucible processes like the Bessemer process put wrought iron off the map. It's an inferior product as far as modern industry is concerned, and they would much rather have the crucible steels. So doing it in a crucible is perfectly valid. It just was not within the scope of our project, and therefore we didn't do that. It might be another project. The more I get into this, the more I'm tempted to go down this side path that I never thought I was going to take anyways. We might get into that stuff. It sounds like it'd be fun, but for now, this is just what we've got. We're still going to do something with this, but I thought I would try to answer those questions and fess up that even though I have told people in the comments that we weren't making steel, we were making wrought iron, and it should be low carbon, we made a mistake somewhere, and we ended up with a higher carbon steel. Just the way things happen sometimes, and in some ways it's a fortuitous event, because now we know that you can make steel that way. And our ancestors probably knew that, but I fully assumed that we would get low carbon wrought iron that would have to be refined into either blister steel or shear steel through a carbon absorption process that takes place either in a sealed container or in the forge through repeated high temp and carbon dippings, for lack of a better word. And apparently you can do this in the bloomery. Whether you can control it in the bloomery is another matter. It's very likely that if we did this again and tried for the same results, we would either end up with cast iron, which has got way too much carbon and is brittle and can't be forged, which may be why some of those little blooms could not be forged, because they may have been cast iron. Hard to know, it's all speculation, but I hope that answers some of the questions people had. I think that wraps up that series of videos again. This will be a whole new series of videos. It's probably going to be a month or so before I get to it. We're going to do a few other things first, and I really want to give this piece of bloom all of the time and attention that it deserves, because this is a real treasure. So, get out to your shop, make something, wear your safety glasses. We'll see you later.